Hi, everyone. Welcome to Lumis Recap. My name's Amy Archer. I'm your host. I'm here today with Dana, the Bravo Investigator. Hi.
That is me. Thank you for having me, Amy.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to be Little Miss recapping with you, and I'm
Yes.
excited about our topic of today.
Oh my God, I'm so into this documentary. I've been telling everyone, you need to watch. I was at a bar last night and I'm saying to my friends, like, have you watched the Charlie Sheen documentary? They just look at me like I'm insane. Because half the time when I'm at this bar, I'm like, have you guys been, talking about the Delphi murders? Who do you think commit? Like, I'm always bringing up true crime. So to have a little reprieve from the true crime was, I think, a good thing. But so tell everyone where you can be found and what you cover because you do a lot of Bravo stuff. And I know I have a lot of Bravo fans in my audience. So, and
I
they're
do
not
a lot
getting
of
it
Bravo
here.
stuff, but just so you know, Amy, I do watch everything. I am a
Oh,
huge 90 Day Fiancé person. I'm watching
mm-hmm,
The Other Way, Happily Ever
mm-hmm.
After. I do all of those series. The one I haven't watched, though, is UK, which I feel like you're really big on.
It's
So maybe
good.
I'll give that one a chance. But I basically watch all the Bravo shows, all the Housewives shows. My favorite ones are more of like what we call like the younger generation, like
Mm.
Vanderpump Rules, Summer House, Southern Charm. And that's what I cover typically on my podcast, the Bravo Investigator podcast, but I also cover pretty much all of the news in the reality TV sphere, whether it
Fun.
be Bravo or Love is Blind, Teen Mom. I'm still
Mm.
really big on Teen
You're
Mom.
big on
So
Teen
what
Mom, huh?
Janelle is always doing something, right? So there's always some news going on with Janelle or
Okay.
even Kaylin, right? So there's always something going
Okay.
on. So Mondays I do a reality roundup, sort of like yours, but with
Mm-hmm.
Bravo and some other reality TV stuff. Throughout the week I do Bravo recaps. Right now doing Miami, OC, and Salt Lake City has just recently come back. And yeah, I'm just trying to cover everything in the reality TV space because that is my jam.
Okay, so we talked a little bit off air, but I told you, like, we did the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City season one. I hated it. But McBee Dynasty, I love. Did you
I
love
loved
it?
it. Obsessed. I
Okay.
didn't think I would
Okay.
be. Like it's
Yes.
about cowboys and I didn't really
Oh,
and all
gosh.
the things that people connected it to, I couldn't
Hmm.
really connect it to because I didn't watch like Yellowstone or
Oh,
maybe even Succession. It was like
girl,
a
you need to
mixture of
go down the Yellowstone path.
you know when you're in a zone of like I want to watch this kind of thing. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
in the,
Mm-hmm.
the reality TV zone right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're in like
Yeah.
a murder doc like
Yeah.
vibe, right? So that's just not
Mm-hmm.
like my vibe right now. But I don't know what it was about it. I think it had like that perfect mix of drama between like, there's like financial drama, there's business drama, then there's the lady drama,
Yeah.
but then there's like FBI involvement. And then you had
Yes.
this one guy who you're not sure, Steve Jr., if he's like a good guy or not, but he ends up being like the person who is sort of the
Holds it all
go-to for
together.
everybody. He holds it all
Yes.
together.
Yes.
And and I really, Galena is like literally the best reality star of our time. I hate to even glamorize her emotional dysregulation, but it is fun to watch.
She is our Natalie. They took
Yes,
Natalie from 90 Day and put her on McBee Dynasty. She's fantastic. I love her. I'm
prostituta.
always I'm always rooting for her. I just think
Right.
she's, gaslit by this horrible monster, Steve Sr. Oh my God. We just love it so much. We love it so much. Is there going to be a season three? Do you have any idea?
Yes. I
There's
mean,
gotta be, right?
I think it did well enough. I feel like, Bravo did a good job of trying to incorporate it into the Bravo sphere. They had other Bravo Lebs do like watches of it, almost like pillow talk in a way, right? They
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
Bravo Lebs do like, oh, watching it. I think they're going to be at BravoCon if they can be. They're
I
doing
think they are.
podcasts. They're really trying to make their way into this
Yeah.
space because, listen, on the back end, we're fully aware that they have financial issues. So why not branch out into the
They need
Bravo
it.
space and
Yes.
immerse yourself in us because we will hand you money if you hand us quality television.
It's interesting because I was thinking, like, why wasn't that a show for TLC, right? And then when you
Hmm.
think about it, Bravo's kind of space is like people who think they're rich. And that's the McVees. And they are rich
Great.
compared to me. Don't get me wrong. But I'm kind of like, okay, I see them fitting over there better, I think. I thought it was a good fit and I thought it was a great season. And I'm here for season three. We need to make it happen.
Yes, and that's very improv. Just one note on it. I don't know if it was you that said it or maybe it was a different podcast. about the concept of like, this is probably, even though it's unsaid, probably a show about a bunch of MAGA cowboys, but we didn't actually see that, right? There was no mention of politics. There was no mention of anything like that. So you were able to immerse yourself in it without taking on any ideologies because they weren't presented to us. It was purely the content.
It was, and I long for those days so often of when we could leave politics aside and just be like, okay, I'm going to engage with these people as people, and that's it. And we might not agree, you know what I mean? But like, that's okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So let's jump in, shall we, to Charlie Sheen. Now, I just wanted to hear your overall thoughts on this documentary because I loved it.
I really liked it. My overall, like if I were to do like a thesis statement, would almost be like, there are no consequences, so why would he stop doing what he's doing, right? It was a very interesting, you know, when you watch a documentary like this, you usually see the rise and fall, or you see the person talk about the mistakes they've made, but he sort of had the same jovial sort of, you know, vibe during the entire documentary, because really at the end of the day, no matter all the bad things that he did, there were very few consequences for the things that he did. And every time there sort of was a consequence, something bigger and better came to him, not he had to go to it. It would come to him. And so it was just sort of interesting in that vein to sort of, you rarely see that. Somebody who can just go through life being very chaotic and very destructive and have very few consequences for their actions.
I mean, a rich white man probably fits that bill. So I thought it was interesting. Are you a Gen Xer or are you a millennial?
I'm a millennial.
Okay.
1983, so like a higher millennial.
Oh yeah, you're an elder millennial. Thank you.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a younger Gen X. So I was born in 1977, so there's only 6 years between us. So I grew up with Charlie Sheen. You know, Charlie Sheen, like I didn't really. I never watch Platoon because I don't watch war movies, but that's a whole other thing. But like I remember him in Hot Shots. I remember him in Major League. I remember him in Wall Street. I remember all of that. And I felt that this was a slice of Gen X nostalgia. Like it was really heartwarming and touching at many places. But I also agree with you. There was this, I like if you were to ask me percent wise to break this down, I would say at the end of the day, I think Charlie Sheen is 70% contrite, 70% sorry for what he's done. Like there's a missing piece.
Yes.
That felt like there was, I mean, I don't have a lot of personal connection to drug addiction. I have a lot of alcoholism in my family and I've been, you know, enmeshed in it in many ways, engrossed in it, whatever you would say. There wasn't that sober talk, if that makes sense. Like it just didn't, there was something lacking there that I was like, oh, this is somebody who's very early in their recovery. Even though it's been 7 or 8 years, I still am not 100% convinced it's there.
You know what I think it is? I think it might be that concept of dry drunk that I've been hearing about recently, where you are the thing, you are sober, but you're not doing all the other things. I think if I can speak for you and tell me if I am mistaken, but what I feel like you're trying to say is like, you don't have that piece where you're talking about all the steps that you took and the remorse and the way that sober people speak, right?
Yes.
About their sobriety.
Yes.
It seems as though he's more so done it because, I don't know, he had to. I mean, we can get into all the reasons and all the sort of relapses
I have 8 pages
of
notes, so we'll get into it.
Right. So we'll talk about all the reasons why he got sober and then like relapsed and regained his sobriety. But it feels different than other people who, I mean, even Jax Taylor, I hate to give him any credit whatsoever.
I don't know him. Is he the Vanderpump Rules person?
You know who he is, yeah.
Barely.
You know who he is. Okay, well, on a
could I pick him out of a lineup? Maybe. If he was in a lineup with like people, I don't know, who didn't look like him.
He recently came out admitting that he's had a coke addiction for like 20 plus years. Okay. He's on the show The Valley, was from Vanderpump Rules.
Oh, The Valley. Okay.
And, you know, it seems as though he's doing it because he has to. And he'll speak about things like his losing his job or his child or things like that. But there is that piece missing about like really wanting to. that being said, in some, and I do have to listen to his podcast for like quote unquote work, I do sometimes hear him now speak about it in more of like sobriety terms and wanting to be better for whatever reasons. There is that sort of language, and maybe I'm not using the correct language because
No,
you know
no,
I don't
no.
come from it, but
totally,
there is that
yep.
language that comes along with it that is missing, and I feel like that is because he's not doing it for the, I don't want to say the right reasons because everyone has their own reasons, but I don't feel like he did it the conventional way. Does that make sense?
And I want to be very clear. Like, we're not judging his sobriety. Everybody's sobriety is personal. It's a personal journey. What I just said, I just feel like, I don't know. And I'm not saying that, you know, oh, he needs to throw himself on the mercy of the court or anything like that. Charlie Sheen doesn't owe us anything. He owes his daughters and his sons things and the people he's hurt. But I just felt like when I hear other people talk about this kind of stuff, it feels different. That's all. Like, there's still this, I'm still Charlie Sheen at the end of it. You know what I mean? It's like, okay.
And he basically says that, right? Like in the documentary when he's being interviewed / all the moments that you see him being interviewed in the past, there is always that sort of conclusion of like, because I'm Charlie Sheen and because I can.
And you know what it is too, Dana, now that I say it, like, I wonder if the therapy piece is missing.
Yes.
Because there wasn't, as he's telling us about this addiction and stuff, he's not like the closest we got to it is when he said, it told me that I was savable. I was worth saving. When he was talking about them cutting down the potency of the crack. Sentence I never thought I'd say. But there wasn't, as he's going through this addiction and stuff, it was never like, well, I felt this way, so I was drawn to this. It was always just, I did crack because crack was great.
Right.
And so it's like, well, what are the deeper reasons that this addiction fueled you for 20 years?
Right.
Like, there's got to be something
pieces,
more.
But you get little, I mean, he made like a very small statement about his father being on substances and this moment, I think when they were in the Philippines and they were there because they were filming for Martin Sheen's movie, and he, I guess, was on something according to Charlie, and like took a knife, put it in his mouth, and sort of like grinned at Charlie with it. But that was just like the only moment. And there's nothing, like you said, like there's usually a backstory as to what led you to get here.
Yeah.
But maybe he really is like his own enigma of a person. And that was an interesting theme I noticed as well, where other people even were saying, like, does he have a different chemical makeup? How was he able to ingest this much drugs?
Yes.
Really?
So John Cryer, though, was giving that. Like, okay, so here's a good example. John Cryer is saying, you know, Charlie Sheen, I think he doesn't think he deserves what he has. The producer says that to Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen acts like this is the first time he's ever even thought of that. Oh, maybe I self-sabotage. Maybe that's right. Like, that to me is 101, like recovery 101. Why are you trying to hurt yourself? Why are you trying to burn your life down? Do you know what I mean? And I don't think he's been there yet.
No, I literally think, I don't know what his thought process is, but I guess it's just not the normal trajectory that I guess you see with people. And well, I guess even with like the cutting down the potency, that was sort of without his consent, if you think about it, right? So it's not even like he was trying to get sober in those moments.
No.
And so you rarely see someone's sobriety being given to them. No one is ever sober. Like, it's almost like
I understand what you're
people
saying.
made him sober without his consent.
Yes, he's almost passive in his sobriety.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
All right, so let's start. The doc is divided into 3 parts. And I just have, in the beginning, there's this overarching metaphor of a captain letting Charlie Sheen fly a plane while drunk. And I thought that summed up his entire life.
Exactly.
And he had married Donna. So he had 3 wives. I have them here. Donna, with whom he had his daughter Cassandra.
Right.
Denise Richards, who you're going to give me a lot of information on because I don't have a lot on her. Daughters Sam and Lola. And then Brooke, who is Max and Bob, the twins' mother. Okay.
Right.
So 1965, he's born. And I cannot tell you as a writer how many writers I've seen use this device where they say, I was born dead. This is a very common thing.
Really?
I hear it a lot. Yes. He was born with the umbilical cord wrapped. He was not breathing. Doctor brings him back. His birth name is Carlos Irwin Estevez. Irwin is after the doctor who saved him. And feel free to just jump in as I kind of go through this.
Well, one thing I do want to mention when we're talking about him as like a rich white man, I think this is an interesting example of someone who is technically not white, but ended
Right.
up using a
Passes,
white
yeah.
passing name and
Yep.
is white passing looking. And that
Yeah.
wasn't really like a thing then, but he got the privilege of being a rich white man without actually being a white man.
Yeah, let me be very clear. Like when you look at Charlie Sheen, if you did not know his birth name was Estevez, you would think he was a white person. Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. So the whole family culture revolved around Martin's acting career. They lived in New York City, and then when Charlie was 3, they sell all the furniture and move out to this rural farmland called Malibu, California, which looked amazing. And I loved all this Super 8 footage that we see. The documentary is so well done.
Yes.
The soundtrack, the clips, how they pulled clips of Charlie's acting career that seemed to line up with what he was talking about.
Exactly. I was so impressed by that. How were they able to find moments in his career that literally matched every moment that they were describing in the doc? The production of that, or like the research that would have gone into that, like brava. I thought that was really impressive.
And so they get, he's from a family of 4 siblings, and they get this Super 8 camera. It seems like Martin Sheen and Charlie's mother, who is not really talked about at all here.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a missing piece. They encourage expression, and they give the kids the Super 8, and we see kind of like their feral childhood. And we see Sean Penn, my boyfriend. We see George Clooney. We see like a bunch of these kids.
Wait, how long have you been together?
Sean Penn and me? Since Mystic River. Yeah.
Okay, quite some time. Go on.
So Martin makes it a stipulation that he has to bring his family on location. And they go to the Philippines and they film Apocalypse Now with Francis Ford Coppola, obviously. Martin's struggling with substance abuse during this time, and Charlie recounts a time when they left for a few months, and then they find out Martin Sheen was, quote, sick, and he had a heart attack. It's not clear. And they go back, and he's in really rough shape. He can barely walk, and Charlie and him do this kind of ritual. That's another thing. Charlie is very into sports. You see how much sports matters to him, and I thought that was really cool throughout the documentary. So he and his father start playing catch, and like every time they play, they move further apart to kind of get Martin's strength up. And Charlie gets choked up and says, my dad credits me with helping him. And it was emotional. It was an emotional discussion. And he says, it's hard for sons to share with fathers what is truly in their hearts. I hope he sees this for the love letter to him that it is. I was tearing up.
There's something missing in that relationship as well. I mean, we didn't have Martin Sheen in the documentary, but the way that he speaks about Martin is definitely like an admiration and like I want you to love me. And so even just that comment is like, I hope you see this. And because it is hard for men sometimes to express their emotions. And I think that's what he's trying to say, especially for someone like him who there's no consequences. There's no real I'm sorry's. There's no accountability.
Even though he is a quintessential Gen Xer through his experiences, he was born in 1965. He's very close to Boomer. And men were just not able to express their emotions. Like that was not something. And when I catch people doing this today, I get very upset. Like we should allow and encourage and ask men to cry, share their emotions, because that's how we normalize it.
Yeah.
So Sean Penn kind of says, we had this untouched childhood, so then they start smoking weed, they start drinking, but it's like normal kid stuff. Emilio sort of blows up first, and he chooses Estevez as his last name. Martin Sheen is happy about that. Charlie's pretty jealous. He sees what his brother's doing. He's like, I want that money. So he doesn't graduate from high school, and he asks his parents, like, before you make me start like paying rent and working at the Dairy Queen, can I please just try acting? Let me see if I could do it. He lands a role in Grizzly 2, The Predator. And I think I might need to rent Grizzly 2 now, because this movie looked very much like a Sharknado situation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so he's also offered Karate Kid at this point. And Martin makes him turn it down because he's already given his word to Grizzly 2. And Charlie says, I was really angry at the time. And then he kind of goes, well, I mean, Ralph Macchio hasn't really become anything.
And that's the thing. He'll find like, it ended up being better for me. It ended, like there's every little situation he has that does piss him off, I guess. He finds a way to do bigger and better.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like he's incapable of tapping into deeper emotions.
That's
because
interesting.
what will happen if he does? Do you know what I mean? Like it's very up here all the
Yeah.
time. Nobody can see me, but you know what I mean. So he becomes a father at this point, and his parents help raise the daughter, Cassandra. He then lands this part in Ferris Bueller, which I remember so well. And I remember watching Ferris Bueller, and I was young, and I remember thinking, God, that guy's hot. Like he was everything I thought was hot as a kid.
Okay.
And he landed the role because he was friends with Jennifer Grey. So that's important, like, and he's walking in there with the last name Sheen. Doesn't hurt. So he knocks it out of the park. He's on screen for like 3 minutes. Because of this, he lands Platoon, which originally was going to go to Emilio, and they lost funding and it went away. And Oliver Stone brings Charlie back in to do it. He's so impressed with Charlie, he gives him Wall Street right on set. Platoon wins Big Picture, and Charlie says, there is a dividing line in my life. Before Platoon, after Platoon. So you have not watched Platoon either?
I haven't, but I'm sort of making this almost like a BC, like before Christ, after Christ sort of situation. But I can so see what he's saying because obviously just even by watching the documentary, you can tell how big this movie was, how much it blew up. And I completely agree with what he's saying. He's like, there was me being almost like a Nepo baby, doing some roles. People knew who I was. And now after Platoon, I am Charlie motherfucking Sheen.
Yeah. And I heard Dom from Fixing Famous People on Kate Casey talking about this. And he said, and I agree with him, that he didn't realize what a student of film the Sheens were because they were making movies their whole lives. It was really interesting. And they were emulating what they were seeing their father do. So they had these really complex, it was like when I used to write soap operas when I was a kid, like really bizarre out there concepts that were probably too mature for your age range, but they were emulating their parents.
Right.
So now Partying with Problems is the next piece. They're starting to get into trouble. They're doing coke. They're sleeping with a lot of women. He makes headlines by accidentally shooting his girlfriend, Kelly Preston.
I don't remember this. Did you?
I don't know.
Before watching this doc?
Nope, I did not remember it. But Kelly says it was an accident. So then we have this whole thing about his family staging an intervention, and it's at like 9 o'clock in the morning. Pro tip, if you're out of control and your family member calls you and says, we have a birthday party at 9 in the morning, it might be an intervention. I'm just going to say.
I think he said that like he'd heard of them, but he'd never seen one in real life. So let's give him the little bit of credit that maybe way back then it didn't feel like an intervention because he'd never been a part of one. His 7th grade history teacher was there that he hadn't seen in 20 years.
Why is my 7th grade teacher here?
The way he describes this room of people, again, with this jovialness, being like, this is odd. This is a little strange, but all right, right? Like, and I'm sure, and I think maybe somebody else had described it this way, that he actually was very angry in that moment.
Yeah.
But the way he describes it to us in the documentary is this very sort of silly event where it's like, Mom says, come over at 9. I don't see any balloons. There's Rob Lowe. All right, cool. What's going on, guys?
And when I say like their party and they're doing, he's connected with Nick Cage at this point.
Right.
Which I didn't realize Nick Cage was off the rails like this.
Me neither.
Like, is Nick Cage okay now?
I don't know.
I don't know if he's sober or not. I don't know. So he goes to this club, and this is where he meets Heidi Fleiss, and he starts to put together, okay, now I remember her. I remember the Hollywood Madam. I remember all of this. I didn't remember Charlie Sheen being connected to it for some reason. But we meet Heidi Fleiss, and wow, time has not been kind to Heidi Fleiss.
Or jail, right? Because she did go to jail.
Yes. And I'm just talking about like her attitude. She is wild. She is living in a house, first of all, that is my complete nightmare, which is a house full of birds. I'm like, I don't even want to say, it was triggering even watching it.
Yeah.
let alone living with these people. And, you know, Charlie's trying to talk nice about her. He's like, oh, yeah, Heidi, you know, she was smart. And she's like, Charlie's a crybaby pussy bitch. It's like, whoa, okay. So she brings up a good point. And I do think Heidi Fleiss is one of those figures like, and I'm not comparing what they did, but one of those figures like a Monica Lewinsky where we need to re-look at her story. You know what I mean? Because she was villainized. She was, you know, slut-shamed, I'm sure. But in the end, she says she went to jail at 26 for running an illegal consensual sex empire. Like, she makes it a point that it was very consensual.
Wait, I'm confused because,
Yeah.
you know, as a strong feminist, I'm like, yeah, I totally support that. And it sort of seemed
Yeah.
like Charlie was supporting it as well. He's like,
Yes.
wait a minute. What is the issue here? That this woman is running this like female-owned business? Is that the problem? And he said that the cops were saying to him, oh, no, it's more of an issue of tax evasion. And then he was like, oh, well, that's more of
on
a her
her
issue.
Yeah.
So what did she go to jail for then? Because now I'm confused because I'm like, is it the tax evasion or was it the business? Because I can't really argue on the tax evasion.
Well, I
piece.
mean, the business was illegal.
Yeah.
So, you know, so here's what she went to jail for. Attempted pandering.
Which was a new word for me that I learned, which basically meant that if you're buying girls for your friends and then you're handing off the ones you paid for, it sounds so weird and disgusting.
Attempted pandering occurs when a person takes significant steps to persuade, recruit, or arrange for someone to become a prostitute.
Oh.
Even if they are unsuccessful in their efforts. So that's what she was. That's a state charge, and that's what she was arrested for. And then the federal charges were tax evasion, just tax evasion, and she was sentenced to 7 years in prison. But I think we need to go back and give her let's look at her through a 2025 lens and see what was going on there. But you're right, Charlie, again, kind of saying, well, yeah, I mean, I did testify against her, but she did the tax evasion, not me. So, you know, I was just, well, no, dude, like, you testified against her.
Yeah.
So in 1995, he's 30. He's getting a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like, things are going really well. He's doing so much coke at this point that he has to shove ice cubes up his ass to stay awake in scenes.
Insane.
Sean Penn says, here comes now, at first I was like, wow, Sean Penn does not look good here. But the more he spoke, I remembered why I'm so into him. And he's, you know, smoking. He's all disheveled. I'm into him. I'm into him. He says, this is biological. Most people, men who do cocaine, copious amounts, have extremely enhanced sexual fantasies, but at the same time, derailed sexual competency. Mm-hmm. Thank God your dick doesn't work when you're on coke. If it did, well, that's Charlie Sheen. I was like, okay. So Charlie meets a girl who introduces him to crack. And you get the sense almost that he was like, I could keep doing the other stuff. It wouldn't have been a problem. It was crack that, no, dude, the other stuff was a problem too. Like, trust me, I've been married to an alcoholic. Like, it is not easy on anybody around you. Like, if he thought, well, I have this under control with the coke and the drinking. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
But I think that is a recurring theme as well. Him, even to this day, probably thinking that he had it under control because he, like I said, he lost very little. And when he did start to lose jobs, it was so far down the road. Like when they canceled 2.5 Men, he picked up anger management right after that, or the tour, or whatever it is that he had immediately after. So I don't know that he necessarily has made that connection. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning about him understanding this or not. But I feel like he's never made that connection in terms of like, I didn't have control over it because I think he thinks he did.
Yeah, I agree. So I
call it almost like a high functioning drug addict. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If that's a term, right?
Yeah.
Like very high functioning.
He ODs one night, and while he's recovering, his father holds a press conference announcing that it's an overdose and talks about addiction. And Charlie is pissed. And he like recovers and goes partying and goes like on a bender. And Martin Sheen has him arrested. And we get Ramon, his brother, says 3 words, I love you. That is my father's parenting style. And I applaud, there was quite the discussion about this on The View. I don't know if you heard about this. I don't watch The
No,
View, but like it
me
came
neither.
through my social media stuff that they were arguing over if a parent should ever turn a kid in. And I say, first of all, I've never parented an addict, so I'm just giving my opinion without experience behind it. I think you do whatever you have to do, including calling the cops on them if that is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. But so he gets out of rehab in 1998. He's been there a year, and all he wants to do is go to a baseball game. And Martin brings him there, and Charlie gets to play with the team. You get the sense it's like this AA team. You know what I mean? And he plays and he hits a home run in front of his dad. And his friend, who's Tony Todd, who's in the whole documentary, a best friend from childhood, he's like, it was just the sweetest moment, like that he hit this home run in front of his father. It was really nice. All right, so he comes out of this, he's a year sober, and he's like, I can do this, you know? He lands Spin City because he wants something with structure. So he's looking for something that is not a
9 to 5.
9 to 5, yeah, that they pay you millions to do, yeah. Michael J. Fox is stepping down at this point because of his health. I love Michael J. Fox. West Wing is on at the same time, so Charlie and his dad are doing well. Charlie talks about how they would watch their shows together every Tuesday night, and Charlie's nominated for a Golden Globe, and he wins. It's the only award he's ever won. He meets Denise Richards, and I just have a note here, Dana, like, wow, she's changed physically. I have not seen Denise Richards probably in 20 years.
Yeah. You know, and there's something about being a housewife and being on those kinds of shows and wanting to keep up with sort of like those things. But like, I guess my take, I mean, I love Denise, but like, I didn't love her in this doc. She came off very like loopy or like out of it and not like the strong woman that she actually was during, you know, all of this, right? I mean, like, there's so much here that, you know, they talk about her making sandwiches for him and his hookers.
Her taking his twins.
Her taking the twins for almost a year. Like,
which I
the
thought
kind
was
of woman
fantastic.
that, amazing. Not even your ex's kids, but your ex with somebody else.
Yep.
And both of them are too incapacitated to take care of the children. You take that on. She's always been like this strong mother figure. And I do think it was important for her to be in this documentary. And I love that he had
100%.
most of the exes in there. I just wish she had come off a little more credible. I don't know if I'm using the right word.
Well, the thing with her is, if you ask me, did I come away from this documentary with a more favorable opinion of Denise Richards? My answer would be yes. I really was impressed by her. But I could also see where, she's been on reality TV because like she would start crying and she's like, no, we need to film this. We need to film this.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is like 101 reality TV. So there's a little bit of that. Like, this is somebody who's been on reality TV. She knows how to do this. But man, was I impressed with her in terms of what she has done for him, what she has survived with him. Like, I had a favorable opinion about her.
And like in all the research that I'd done on her, like she had done her own autobiography. And when I do like these episodes where I deep dive a certain Bravo lab, I do a ton of research. I will read every book they've written, listen to every interview they've done, watch every show that they've done.
And you did one on her?
And I did one on her. And what I was unable to find, despite all that research, was anything negative about Charlie Sheen. And I was like, this is wild. And I had to end up going through the court documents. And that's where I really found like the crux of it. But to give you a synopsis on who like Denise Richards is, she came from a very normal nuclear family. And then she ended up in this. And I think in her mind, she just wanted to create this, to the best of her ability, a perfect family for her children more than anything. And despite the fact that those children would be fully capable, as they age, of Googling their father later on and finding out exactly who he is, she really worked her whole life to try to protect those children from any harm in any way. And I think that's why, like, if you really look into like the things that he did to her, because they don't really get too much into it in the documentary, but yeah, like death threats. He wanted her to abort both of the children. Like he was really, really awful to her. Physical violence, like verbal violence, like just a lot of things, but she'll never abandon him. And she'll always say that she loves him. And that is about that family dynamic and her always seeing him as the father of her kids.
And I also appreciate that at the same time, because I want to be very careful with my language here, because I'm saying she's a strong woman, but that she also, kind of, some people might think enabled some of this behavior. So I want to be very clear to say she was strong enough to know when to walk away and to put boundaries up. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Because she was like, I'm going to help him. He's the father of my children. My children will be better for it if he's better. Right. But I'm also not, I don't need to live with him and be with him.
No, for sure. And I could be wrong. It's interesting that you just said that, because now that, if I'm thinking back, I think that when they met, he was sober. I think he had been sober for 2 years. And that she had communicated, not in this documentary, but maybe in her book, that she didn't know anything about addiction at that time. Right. So her just not having that background or understanding, I think there's maybe that little piece of like, enabling is one thing, but just to have that lack of understanding is sort of something else, right?
Yeah, maybe enabling is the wrong word. It's hard for me to talk around their marriage because I don't know a lot about it. But I just wanted to point out that it feels weird for me to be saying that. I don't know. I think what I'm trying to say at the end is I feel like she handled this with appropriate boundaries for herself and the safety of her children.
Yeah.
But also didn't give up on him for the sake of his children.
And I think she never will.
An incredibly difficult place to be in and a line to walk. And I applaud her that she did. I think, in my opinion, she did it. So
yeah, I agree.
Okay, so he meets, and I also think she is the true love of his life.
You think?
Yes, I think
probably
that
right.
His life would be very different had he stayed with her.
I think everyone
like
says
John
that.
Cryer says, she was a grounding force for him, and I think that was a big mistake. So they're watching Barry Bonds break the home run record. God, do I remember that? And they're on the zone diet. I wrote, this is a time. This is an exact time in place. So when he gets 2.5 Men, he's 2 years sober at this point. And everyone kind of agrees, like I said, that Denise is really good for him. They have their baby, Sam. Denise believes once the show got really big that he started to self-sabotage. And he started doing Oxy as a way to get fucked up, but like to kind of still be legally okay, if that makes sense. Like, and I could see where he does a lot of this bargaining.
Right.
And he's like, well, it's not illegal, so I'm not like a drug addict, but you are, because misusing pills is illegal as well.
I think that's a mentality that a lot of addicts have. And I think they even asked him that in the documentary. I don't know if it was at this moment, but I think he was asked, were you seeing yourself as an addict at that time? Were you seeing this as an addiction? And he was like, well, not really, because I was doing this, justification in my own head, which I think a lot of people do. I don't think a lot of people from like the jump are like, I am an addict, right? I think that takes a long time to be able to get there. And you're like, well, I didn't do it today or yesterday, so I guess I'm not an addict. Or I'm doing this thing and it's legal, so I guess I'm not. I'm sure you're doing that negotiating or bargaining with yourself in your own head, probably maybe even for years before you really understand that you have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think he thinks, well, it's not crack. So, it's not that. So, we learn a little bit about Denise and their marriage, and there were PFAs, and, Denise, like, to your point, doesn't really talk about it. Then we meet Brooke Mueller.
What an interesting character.
Yikes. She's a character. She loved Dirty Dancing. I'm like, how dare you think that he was in Dirty Dancing? How dare you insult the Sways this way?
I love
Dear
that they
God.
kept this in, though, because it just showed. I don't know. Do you think it was sort of like this symbol of her not ever knowing who he really was? Do you think that's why they sort of kept it in?
100%. So she meets Charlie right after he divorced Denise. She was 5 years sober at this point. And John Cryer says, my wife went to the wedding because I was out of town, and she had concerns. And he goes, let me just tell you Martin Sheen's speech at this wedding. He stood up and he said, well, I hope you two know what you're doing. And he sat back down. They have twins, Max and Bob. And Max and Bob, when they were born, were in the NICU, and it was pretty serious. And I remember that. I remember that going on. And Charlie starts to resent the machine of 2.5 Men because at this point he needs to be at the hospital and they can't cut his production schedule at all. So
he's by that. Like, he's the
burning
star
the
of the
candle
show.
at
I
both
kind
ends.
of, it's the one time where I'm like, give this man a little bit of a break. He's running
Yeah.
to the hospital every night. His children's hearts are in danger. Why is the show not making an accommodation for him?
Yeah, yeah. So 9 years with no crack was a record for him, and it ended in 2009. It was Brooke who got him back on crack. And he gets arrested in Aspen on Christmas Day. There's this huge, like, crack-fueled fight. It's unclear what happened, but Brooke called the police on him, said he was threatening to kill her. She recanted it. She recants it now. She says, we were both so fucked up. I don't know what happened. And I mean, on a much smaller scale, I've seen this many times where you see like a couple who they're both drunk, right? And they're just going in circles and the fight is very circular. And you're like, I can't tell who's in the wrong here. So I imagine that times 100 if you're both like on crack and fucked up on other things and in this room together.
Totally. But where it gets kind of murky is like, has he engaged in domestic violence or not? It's like this weird dance because you look at the Kelly Preston thing and you're like, okay, well, she said it was an accident. So you're like, okay. And then you have this and you have someone recounting. And like you said, with very good reason, because she doesn't remember. Okay. And so we have all of these like little bits of incidents, and it's enough to make you uncomfortable, but not enough for anyone to do anything about. But,
if you were to
ask Housewives
me,
fashion, where there's smoke, there's fire.
If you were to ask me, has Charlie Sheen ever put his hands on someone? I would be less sure than I would be if you said, has Charlie Sheen ever threatened somebody? I think 100%. I think, and this is where we can get into the nuance of separating the addict from the addict behavior, right? Because I don't even think Charlie Sheen knows what he's done.
Exactly.
When he's been under the influence. I think it's been real dark. I think it's been real bad. And I don't know. I don't know if he's been held accountable enough for those instances. I don't know.
But also if you don't have someone willing to come forward, which you don't in a Kelly Preston or in a Brooke Mueller, because when you don't have the other side actually saying that the thing happened and that they want to pursue it, case closed, right? So it's weird and murky.
I found Denise to be the most reliable narrator here. And so I was kind of taking my cues from her.
Same.
And she kind of talks about like, I was scared of him. He threatened me. He smashed all the TVs in with a baseball bat, that kind of stuff. And I've been in those situations. It's scary. And to me, that's a form of abuse when you're scaring somebody, even if you're not touching them. Mm-hmm. So I think she has suffered abuse at his hands, in my opinion. So he files for divorce from Brooke, and his career is weirdly taking off, and he's not apologizing for anything that's happening. And it's interesting because they show Tiger Woods at the same time being very contrite, giving this weird press conference where he has to stare his mother-in-law in the face and be like, I fucked around. I don't know what's happening. Contrast that with Charlie Sheen, who's not apologetic, winning, just kind of going crazy.
He is winning.
And he's getting rewarded for it. So the public starts to embrace him. And I very distinctly remember this time. And I remember him being heralded as this fuck you to the man, fuck you to the corporate gods kind of figure. And it's like, guys, Charlie Sheen, son of Martin Sheen, brother of Emilio Estevez, cannot be the poster child for rebelling against the Hollywood machine.
Right.
He's part of it. It was just weird. It was this, like, I don't know. It was strange. It was like a contradiction.
Yes.
So he gets a contract. He basically, Les Moonves shows up one day, and who has now departed our ecosphere. And he's like, you're either going to rehab or we're shutting the show down. So it's not clear what happens there, if he goes to rehab or not. All I know is somehow Charlie Sheen comes out of this making $2 million a fucking episode.
Right.
And let me look up, what is their episode count?
And I just want to mention the rehab thing, because I thought that situation was, again, such showed the kind of power this man has, that he walks into the rehab, but he has plans tomorrow, right? He's got to judge a bikini contest. He's got places to be. So he's able to convince the nurse at the rehab, which, by the way, happened on the Valley and led to that woman crying. This is a different situation where it led to him convincing this woman at rehab that he will be back in the morning, otherwise she gets $1 million. And he is back. That's part of that high functioning drug addict that he is.
Yeah.
He's able to be back at rehab at 8 a.m. You know?
My grandmother used to call her father, who was my great grandfather, she used to call him a working alcoholic. And it was interesting because she would always be like, well, Poppy, she always told me, Poppy would get up every morning and have a beer and a shot before he went to work. And I would be like, Graham, so he's an alcoholic, right? Like he's drinking first thing and she's like, well, he always worked. He always had a job. So there's that like, okay, well, he's working. So it's not that bad. He's not lying in a gutter somewhere. Like, no, he's wreaking more havoc probably.
Yeah.
And it's just, so 2.5 Men, I just pulled up a random season. Season 4 had 24 episodes. Let's look at 26. Season 26. 24 again. So he's making $48 million a year.
No
for
chump
24
change.
shows. Wow.
Amazing.
Wow. Okay. So, everyone is kind of like, you shouldn't be throwing money at clearly somebody who's not in sobriety. And Charlie says, I was the highest paid actor. And Denise says, on TV ever, still. Wow. Charlie's drug dealer is Marco, and he has a condo in Hollywood that Charlie bought, and he's sitting right next to Charlie's Golden Globe. And I'm like, why is this guy not in jail? Like, he's on TV saying, yeah, I sold drugs.
That's a great point. I guess they have bigger fish to fry.
I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, they become good friends. This guy, just kind of he's providing the gasoline for the fire. Chuck Lorre is in the doc. And I remember Charlie and Chuck having a very public anti-Semitic on Charlie's side.
I didn't remember any of that.
Yes.
What did you make of that? Do you think he was doing that?
They made a point to show the plaque where he did get the name from, but it's still gross and it still felt anti-Semitic to me. And I think he should have been able to say now, oh my God, I see how that looks. And I owe Chuck an apology for that. Like, that was not what I believe or how I talk, but he didn't do any of that.
No, you don't get any of that throughout the entire documentary at all.
Nope. So the crew called Denise to go get Charlie a lot on set. And there's that one famous scene where she's talking about making sandwiches for everybody. And she's like, John Cryer's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, well, just because these women sleep with people for money or whatever, they're sex workers, they don't not deserve to eat. I'm like, I love this woman.
And there's another story that she's told 1,000,000 times about Thanksgiving where he pulls up for dinner. He's got hookers in the car. She's like, invite them in for Thanksgiving dinner. So this is not the first time that she has made food for Charlie and friends. But one thing I just want to mention, don't you think it's kind of fascinating how much like all of the characters in this are the characters that they are? Like John Cryer, him as himself is the same person he was on TV. Same with Charlie Sheen, who Chuck Lorre did say he was looking for a Charlie Sheen type character. But watching John Cryer like talk about Charlie Sheen, I feel like I'm watching 2.5 Men in a way where he's like,
good point.
Hey, can you hide this like bag of porn? He's like, hey, is it legal? Okay, man. Right? Like just their dynamic and their interaction and how they would talk about each other in the doc was so true to who they are in real life.
I was telling one of my co-hosts, Amanda, we were talking about this, and she was like, I never saw 2.5 Men. I'm like, well, he was playing Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
It's just like they put Charlie Sheen on camera. But I didn't realize, you're right. The John Cryer as well.
The John Cryer character.
Because John Cryer, meanwhile, while Charlie's doing this, John Cryer's professional and creative career is tied to this nightmare.
I know. What a nightmare.
And he's getting paid 1/3 of what Charlie Sheen's getting. It's madness. So we see outtakes of him like fucking up on the set, and it was really out of character because even John Cryer says like he was good at his job. He was good at what he did, and this was out of character. So he's going off the deep end, and this is where we get the tiger blood, and it's a lot of like wild shit and winning, and so we find out that he was on testosterone.
Right.
A lot of it. And are you a Sister Wives watcher?
No, I'm not, but I think I should start to
Because I
delve
now
in.
wonder if this is what happened to Cody Brown, if he started taking testosterone, because he also like lost his mind in some way.
You know what? I mean, do we even know the impact of mixing testosterone with all of the kinds of drugs that he was
I have
also
no
doing,
idea.
right? But like when we were talking before about the chemical makeup and how he thinks he has tiger blood, I do wonder what it was about him as a human that did make him be able to ingest this amount of drugs. And I think that really speaks to why this went on for so long, because most people eventually end up in the hospital or die
Dead.
or they have some moment, right? Like your heart stops, like something physically happens to you that
Yeah.
makes you be like, from now on, I need to be better. But what, like, I'm not trying to defend him. I almost am just thinking in just like his mind of like, why would I stop?
Right.
Why
It's
wouldn't I
fun.
do more? I'm going to keep doing more
It's fun,
drugs
and they're
because my
giving me a
body is
ton of
allowing
money.
me to. It's doing all the things. There are no consequences.
Yes. Good point. So Charlie and Chuck are fighting publicly, and Chuck shuts down the show. He's like, we're done. There's sort of this public war where Martin Sheen and Emilio are talking about to the press about how much they love him and support him. And Charlie's like, fuck you. I'm out of here. And he gets very popular. We even see like he has a verb coined after him, sheening. I'm sheening. He loses custody of his sons. And I think they don't say it, but Brooke is obviously still in her addiction. And Denise takes them for almost a year. And I'm like, another reason I love her. I need to listen to your episode about her.
Fucking all-star.
Is it on
But
your
yes, I will send you
free?
the episode.
Is it on your free feed?
Yes. So for your audience, I do this limited series called Be True Hollywood Story, which is like E True Hollywood Story, but for Bravo Lebs. It tells you the life of a Bravo Leb from birth to scandal to stardom and everything in between. So I've done Denise Richards, Kristen Doty, Shep Rose from Southern Charm, lots of different characters. But Denise Richards is an interesting one. And I did that one right before her show premiered with Aaron, but it definitely gives you a lot of context on Aaron.
Okay. So he loses custody. She takes them. And, you know, I was watching this with my husband, and Timmy's like, wow, that was really nice of her. I'm like, well, they're her children's siblings. So it
But
does
not everyone
make
would
sense
do
to
it,
me.
you know?
Yeah, but not everyone would do it. I agree. So then he's broke, and I wrote, how the fuck is he broke? But he's broke. So Live Nation sends him on a tour. And you can see he's surrounded by these sycophants who are like,
Yes.
you're the most popular
Yes,
guy on Twitter. You're the great. It's almost like the manosphere just came to his house and sat with him on his deck and told him how great he was and that he should do this. And Denise says it's like Weekend at Bernie's. You have all of these people propping him up and dragging him around. It's really crazy.
It's crazy, and I'm curious your thoughts because I'm trying to. There's certain periods of time in time, like moments in time that you remember where you were, like when Princess Diana died, when the whole like winning thing was happening in the tiger blood. I mean, I remember it, but I don't remember what I was thinking about. I knew he was out of his mind, but I guess I thought it was funny. And then they show like the public around that time, you know, like men with their children being like winning and wearing his hat and all of that. And it's kind of
so weird
scary
to
and
me.
terrifying that we were
It's-
glamorizing somebody having a nervous breakdown, and we were like, do it more fun.
But because he was Charlie Sheen and he was so charming that you almost thought, I think you 25% thought, okay, this is an act. Like he's doing this on purpose. I don't know. I mean, my girls were little and my life was, very chaotic at the time. So I didn't follow it closely, but I just remember being like, oh, this guy's nuts, but like how brilliant of a campaign. I really thought it was an act. No, he was sick, and
I mean,
people needed to step in
I
here.
feel like totally. The only time I feel like I saw him sick was the interview that he did with some news outlet where they started at like 5:30 in the morning. They showed a part of it, and that's where he's talking about the tiger blood and this and that. And he looked
He looked terrible.
He looked ill. He was very white. He looked sick. And that interview, like even like whoever had produced that even said it was like one of the most chaotic things they'd ever been a part of. But that was sort of the only time you saw him in a physically different way. I'm not sure if the public was that privy to that interview, but maybe if they had been or it had been made a bigger deal, then people would have seen it differently. But I guess they continued to see him, quote unquote, winning. So why not continue to
Yeah.
prop him up as someone who is winning, you know?
Yeah.
It was weird. What a weird
So
moment in time.
it's a weird moment in time. So I kept waiting for this moment for him to, like, I kept watching thinking, okay, what is the moment? You know what I mean? There really isn't one yet. We talk about how he is diagnosed with HIV. And this was from Denise. Denise was like, you don't look good. When's the last, have you been tested? Blah, blah, blah. He's diagnosed and he says, I was told to keep it hush. And I 100% believe this. From growing up in the 80s, I can tell you that 100% this guy, his instinct was to keep this under wraps. So I don't fault him for that. I think he got bad advice and I think he followed it because I think it was confirmation bias with what he was already feeling. I need to keep this under wraps.
You mean like bad advice in terms of like, sleeping with women and then they were kind of coming at him for it?
Just not being public about it.
You think he should have been public about it? I mean, even now, I feel it's still it's so stigmatized.
He doesn't owe it to anyone to be public about it. But I think he should have at least been forthcoming to the women that he was sleeping with. And there is some debate as to whether or not he was.
I was confused about that in the doc because he's saying, I never infected anyone with this. But how do you know?
You don't know that. You don't know that.
How can you make a definitive statement like that, right? Like, I think what he's implying is all the women who sued him for it were lying. I mean, we don't know because these are all like settlements. But yeah, I mean, even if one of those women was diagnosed, there isn't even like necessarily a way to even trace it back to him specifically. Correct. So it's really unknown for anyone who sues someone for an STD. I think for the most part, people settle just to make the whole like publicness of it go away. But I don't think there's any way to prove that one person gave you another.
No. And when I say bad advice, I think it was a bad situation he put himself in that allowed him to be blackmailed.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, my God.
Like, in other words, Charlie's going to Charlie. He's going to bang a bunch of people.
Right.
So, like, him keeping the HIV thing under wraps is not safe for the behavior that is about to happen.
Yeah.
Now, if he was, like, in a long-term marriage with Denise Richards and was like, I'm not having sex with other people, okay, keep it under wraps. Yeah. You don't owe anybody anything. But, like,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I guess I was thinking more of the, like if I were to be infected with HIV, it's the last thing I'd ever tell anybody ever.
Right.
Especially if you're a public figure. It's like, oh my God, like my life would feel like it's over. But you're right, because his life is so tied into his sexual, prowess.
Like Sean Penn told us, he likes to fuck. Yeah. I don't know. So Denise, we don't know if this is Denise, but to stop him from taking crack, his team, his people, the people who care about him, they tell his drug dealer, Marco, to cut back on the crack's potency. And so it takes a year and a half
but it worked,
of doing crack. And it's interesting because Charlie talks about this and he says, talk about thinking so far outside the box that you land on that. And he says, it tells me that I'm savable, that I'm worth saving. I thought that is the realest thing you have said this entire documentary, because what precedes that's not said, that's implied, is that he didn't think he was savable. Do you know what I mean? And he said, that told me I was savable. Well, why? Like, let's talk about why you didn't think you were savable. That's what this was missing. That deeper analysis.
Not even just, I didn't think I was savable, but I knew, or maybe in his mind it was like, I know I am a train wreck. I know that. And I know that the ending is going to just be the end of the train. Like one day it'll just run off the track. That's how maybe he expected his life to sort of end. It's just he's going to go full force until it just ends. Yeah. But then he was like, oh, it doesn't need to. Oh.
Yeah.
There can be a different way. But I just think the fact that it was almost done for him is such just an interesting concept, even though I brought it up before. The fact that they were able to, the only way for him to really come off of this was for everyone around him to trick him. Yeah. Fascinating.
So now we get to this part where, and the director makes a big deal out of kicking everybody out of the room. We're going to talk about things. Well, I mean, it's still going to be on TV. So, but he's going to talk about things he's never talked about publicly. So the
Right.
first thing that comes up is Corey Haim. So do you know the Coreys and all this drama?
So I didn't really, I'll tell you my very limited understanding. Two guys in the 80s who were big, like, you know, sort of teen heartthrobs, these two Coreys. I know that they acted with Charlie Sheen. I know that Charlie Sheen was in a movie with Corey Haim called Lucas when he was 13. And that there are allegations that Charlie raped Corey. Now, the part that I am confused about is whether that ever came from Corey Haim's mouth or this only came from Corey Feldman's mouth. Now, I do just want to mention to you one of my great friends, Nat, on TikTok, on an Instagram. She had posted a couple really great videos about this yesterday because in the documentary he had said that he never sued Corey Feldman for this because he didn't want to give him any more content, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
But apparently he did sue the National Enquirer way back when, because apparently Corey Feldman was not the first person to bring this up. There were many other people who went to news outlets about this and that he tried to sue them back then. So this isn't the first time this came up. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, I guess the part where I'm just a little still confused on is whether this was only coming from third parties, which doesn't make it not true. I'm just curious whether that's the case or not. Do you know whether this ever came from Corey Haim or was this only from all these other people?
We don't know. All I know is Corey Haim suffered horribly with addiction, as we know. And a lot of times he alluded to men in Hollywood taking advantage of him, sexually assaulting him. Corey Feldman took that torch up for him when he died. And he always said, you know, I'm not going to reveal it. I can't talk. Like, he was weirdly quiet about it, which I get. I mean, he may have feared repercussion. I don't know, whatever. Side note here that has nothing to do with this. Charlie Sheen and Corey Feldman look so much alike. I'm not convinced that Corey Feldman is not his son. But anyway.
That's really interesting. He's on Dancing with the Stars, I believe, this season.
Wow, it's wild. It's wild how much they look alike.
Yeah.
But when Corey Feldman finally revealed it was Charlie Sheen, a lot of people believed it. But I don't know. Corey Haim's mother came out and said it's not possible, but I always take that with a grain of salt because you don't know what shape his mother's in, and parents are not there all the time. I can't guarantee you that somebody didn't do something to my kid. You know
Absolutely
what I mean?
not. And I want to mention something else that my friend, Nat mentioned in her video, that when the mother was interviewed and said, like, no, like, I know my son, she also contradictorily then said, I do know that he was being abused by somebody else at that time. Okay, so you said that you would know whether he was being abused, but then you also said that he was being abused by somebody else also at that exact same time. So, anything could have been going on. It's super unfortunate that we do not have this from the person's mouth. I will say that as somebody who has done this work for a number of years, statistically, people do not lie about this kind of thing.
Agreed.
That being said, we don't have it from the person's mouth. But one thing that I want to make a point on about Charlie on this, and it sort of made me think of Brooke Mueller when she was talking about, I had to retract because I couldn't say with certainty that X happened because I was so out of it. Well, then that made me think of Charlie in this moment when it comes to Corey Haim, when he's saying definitively this didn't happen. Charlie, is it possible you don't remember?
Exactly.
You were in such a drug haze for your entire life that I don't think you can actually say without a shadow of a doubt that this didn't happen. Of course he's going to say it didn't happen. It's a crime. It's a documentary. He's not going to admit it.
Yep.
But I think it's also very possible that you do not remember.
I want to see when Lucas, the movie, came out. What year was that? 86. So, Dana, bear with me here because I'm not good at math.
You were not.
1965, 1986. I'm trying to figure out how old Charlie Sheen was. He was 21. So, Corey Haim was, 13? Did they say 13 or 14? And, okay, so, because what I'm wondering, and this is dark, is could there have been some sort of consensual relationship in Charlie's mind that was in reality not consensual at all because Corey Haim was a fucking child? Right.
Possible.
Like, that's what I'm wondering. Because I don't know.
I want to do more research on it because I don't know what Corey Feldman has said, right? Like, is there a whole story about how it got
here? And I
think
think it might be easy for Charlie Sheen to say, I did not rape him. Like, that might be what he's saying because it's very black and white for him. But it's not black and white for somebody who's underage, A, and who's coerced, B.
Right.
So like, we don't know. Yeah. I walked away with this thinking, I'm not 100% convinced this didn't happen. I'm also
Yeah.
not 100% convinced it did. We don't know. Again, if it were Corey Haim saying it, I would side with Corey Haim.
100%.
But we don't have it from Corey Haim.
I know, which is
Yeah.
such a weird, and it's weird that they ended the documentary with it and that they didn't delve into it that much, but I guess they can't really. So it sort of left you with a bad taste in your mouth
What
because I liked the
ahead.
documentary for the most part, and I kind of like
I did
felt
too.
uplifted by it for the most part, but that left like an icky feeling for me.
What I was uncomfortable about it was how close in proximity they had that piece with the having sex with men piece.
Which are two different things.
Two different things. And it also continues the stereotype of the categorization of homosexuality as deviancy. And
Right.
I did not like that. Like
Yeah.
those two topics have very different, there's
Great point.
miles between them.
Great point.
So now we talk about lawsuits exposing women to HIV. He says, I've never given it to anyone. We talked about this. We see one interview with one girlfriend who, I don't know what this girl's issue or job is, but she's super smart, super smarty pants, talking about how HIV is now like a comorbidity. And I was like, whoa, look at you, girl. And then he talks about having sex with men, but he can never say it.
No, he doesn't say it.
He uses this metaphor of the menu.
Right. Flipping it over.
He's really uncomfortable. And he says, you know, I was scared to say this for years. I was embarrassed to say this for years. But look, I'm saying it and nothing's happening. And so you get a sense of the shame that he has felt and internalized and lived with, even though, and I was thinking about this too, as I'm watching this, and here is one of the leading men of Hollywood of our generation coming out and saying, I've had sex with men in cocaine-fueled, crack-fueled binges, right? 10, 15, 20 years ago, this would have been like, oh, but now we're kind of like, okay, like, that's fine. You know, you experiment, you do what you want, you love who you want. And I
But I
just
like
thought,
how he
wow,
described
what
it
an
that way.
interesting
Yeah,
thing.
it was interesting, but it was also just the way he described it, because I feel like 15, 20 years ago, it would be like, okay, then Charlie Sheen is gay. And it's like, it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily
it
mean
does-
that.
it
The way
doesn't
he
mean
explains
that.
it is like, you know, I was doing all these fun kinds of drugs and it made me hypersexual and it made me want to try all these different things. And I like how he said some of it was cool, some of it was weird. But, you know, sex should be something that's like experimental and you're trying all these different things. And it doesn't mean anything about your sexuality, because sexuality is such a spectrum. And they don't really talk about it in terms of what it means for him, or whether they did talk about the fact that it came from the period of time when he was on crack or coke or
Yes.
whatever.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it wasn't this definitive thing about him in a way.
Yeah,
Or it
I
didn't
agree.
need to be. And I liked that.
And I liked how the director said, you know, like, would you nuke the other side of the menu? Meaning, like, you know, is this something you would never do again or ashamed of? And he's like, no, why would I? Like you said, some of it's fun, some of it's, you know, whatever. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like, I was glad he talked about it. I thought it was brave of him because it's clearly something he's ashamed of. So, and he shouldn't be, but it's something he's ashamed of. And I thought it was brave for him to talk about it. And it helps to normalize sexuality as a spectrum. But I still, you know, there's still that Gen X culture in there that won't let him just say it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, this is a guy, when I see this guy, I'm like, this is a guy at the beginning of therapy. I think 10 years from now, he's going to be able to, if he stays sober, if he stays on this path, and if he does work on himself, does the deep work, I think we'll see a very different person.
Yeah.
So
What did you think about his daughter and how he said that, you know, his final attempt at sobriety, and seems to be the one that stuck, was because he needed to drive Sammy to a hair appointment and he was too drunk to do so because he would never drink and drive. That's where he draws the line, of course.
Sure.
And so he goes with Tony and, you know, makes sure that Sam gets there. But on the way back, he has this moment, and not because Sam has said anything, but in the back seat, he gets this sense or this vibe that, like, she's probably wondering, why is Tony here? Why couldn't Dad have just driven me himself? And then it's sort of that one moment or that one thing that we can cling on to from this documentary where he's like, okay, my calling then is to be there for my children. I want to be the guy that
Yeah.
is the person that they can call whenever they need, which his other daughter, Lola, says now is sort of the person that he is. And I think that's really beautiful. But his daughter, Sammy, has been pretty public about, not having really a relationship with him. But I don't know if you saw her in the media recently, but she posted something saying that, like, it was just like a sad picture of her. It looked like her crying with the words across saying, I didn't know my dad got sober for me until I saw this documentary. And so, he was been out there saying, I don't know why she's mad at me. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? Like,
Yeah.
she didn't have a normal childhood because of you.
There's
And
resentment.
she almost, saw him in a different light after watching the documentary that she wasn't a part of. And I think I hope their relationship starts to grow from here, because I think that's such like a pivotal moment.
I agree. I thought it made total sense to me that, like, there's this, he's drunk in the morning, but he's responsible enough to know not to drive his kid in a car. Like, it was interesting. And then, yeah, I mean, like Sean Penn says, there's nothing more amazing you'll do than have your children, right? So, what a great reason to get sober. Like, what a good thing to get sober for.
Right.
I just really hope it sticks. And I love that he is now reconnecting with his children.
Mm-hmm.
So we see at the end of the documentary that Bob is living with him. We don't know if Max is. Max might be, but he's not in the documentary. He's going for pedicures with Lola. Brooke is still struggling, and he's very gracious to her. He says, her timeline is different than mine. That's all.
That felt a little condescending, though, because it's like, dude, it took you quite some time as well. Okay, like, come on.
And the doc ends with a nice tribute to Martin Sheen, where he kind of talks about his dad and how much he loves his dad, and that he's just very grateful. And I don't know, despite all the things that we've talked about, I came away with, I was very moved by it.
Same.
I was crying at the end.
Same.
I was very moved. The soundtrack helped with that. The videos.
How does the song go?
It
2
was
steps
moving.
in the yard.
Yes. Oh, that's one of my
Used
favorite
to be
songs.
so hard. Ugh, that was killing me. And I think the relationship with the kids is what kind of gets to me the most. Like, even though the kids aren't emotional in the documentary, just him reestablishing those relationships, or them saying that they're happy to have him in their life. Like, I am crying at that. And so, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to say that it's despite the fact that we didn't maybe necessarily get all the things we wanted out of this, it was still very heartwarming. And we did still get to see a side of him we didn't see before in some ways.
Yeah. And he came off to me likable. He came off to me charming. I mean, I definitely have more respect for him after seeing this than I did. But if you were to ask me, is he going to stay sober? I would say 30%, maybe not. 70% hope so. Like, I'm not 100% convinced. I'm real. There is an entire group of people around this man who love him, including his children, who are rooting for him and want him to be sober. I'm one of them. I want him to stay on this path.
You're one of his children?
Yeah, I wish I was. I would have a lot more money. I would be podcasting from a much bigger studio. No, I do not wish I was Charlie Sheen's child. I have a wonderful father.
You mentioned something interesting that I think may be the reason if he does break his sobriety. It's the therapy of it all. It doesn't seem like he's ever done therapy or ever will. And so not having that piece to guide you, I guess, is sort of that missing piece. So if he ever does break his sobriety, I think it'll be because he doesn't have that sort of plan. It's the dry drunk. He's not doing the steps and the things he needs to do to continue in sobriety. Like. All he is doing is just not drinking and doing drugs, which is not enough.
Right. And when you, and I've seen many alcoholics in my personal life try to quit drinking without doing the work to figure out where the drinking comes from. And they're white knuckling it, and it's very steeped in shame, because that's what we do as a culture,
right.
Like, you're good or you're bad. It's very similar to diet culture.
Yeah.
You're good or you're bad. You have willpower or you don't. And I think when you get into therapy and you start to think, okay, well, why do I think that I take this path instead of that one. You're doing the work and you're unpacking things. It just gives you such a deeper sense of sobriety. So
Right.
I think he needs that. I really do. And he should be in group therapy with his children, family therapy, I mean, with his children. He and Denise should be in therapy, talking about how to co-parent. He and Brooke should be in therapy. Like, there needs to be so much therapy around this. And I don't know Denise, but I'm assuming that she's gotten these kids some kind of therapy, or for herself, or she might understand it. But in my opinion, Charlie Sheen does not seem like somebody who's done a bunch of therapy.
No, and now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think anyone in this documentary or anyone involved in his life has ever mentioned therapy. I'm just wondering
They
now
didn't talk
why.
about it. Yeah,
why
they
this has
didn't
never
talk
been brought
about
up.
it.
I don't know if it's something that has been brought up to him, and it's a particular like a no for him. Like, that's beneath me. I don't know, right? Like,
I don't know.
It just seems odd that it's never been presented to him. So I would more so imagine that he has turned down the idea, but I completely agree with you that this is something that will sort of help him in his life, with his family, with his children, and with the continuation of his sobriety. We can all benefit from therapy. It's not even like a bad, dirty word. I love therapy. Therapy is my favorite. So,
I love
it really
therapy.
benefits everyone.
Another thing I want to bring up is, like, his mother is totally absent from this entire documentary. I had to look up to see if she was even still alive.
What's her name?
She is alive. Her name is Janet.
Okay.
She's been married to Martin Sheen since 1961. She's 81 years old.
It is interesting.
I
I mean,
mean,
he implied they have a good relationship, but you only got that from that piece about the intervention where she's like, "Oh, can you come over early for Dad's birthday?" And just, I know this was sort of nothing and it was just like a trivial communication, but just listening to how he described the communication, it seemed like they had a very normal, regular relationship. But obviously, she was the one getting him to the house for the intervention. So, I mean, we could probably picture her as the type of mom who was very worried about him, and maybe he didn't even want her in the documentary because it would portray a much sadder view of the
Maybe?
life that he tried to make seem like kind of fun and jazzy, while on her
Yeah,
end it may have been real torture for her.
I just think it's so interesting.
It
like,
is.
she's nowhere.
No women, really, except for his ex-wives.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been an amazing discussion. I'm so glad that you came with all of your Denise Richards knowledge. And yeah, I just really appreciate it. I really appreciate you being here talking to me about it. This was a good conversation.
This was. I appreciate you talking to me too. I love documentaries. My mom has kicked me off the Netflix. So if there's anything new coming out on Netflix, please let me know. I have my ways to find them. But yeah, I love chatting with you. I love having like these deep, nuanced conversations about television, right? When people make fun of us for our love of reality TV, it's like, no, listen to us deep dive.
So, Dana, tell everyone where they can find you.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at the Bravo Investigator, and you can listen to the Bravo Investigator podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Fun. All right. And I will definitely be scooting over there and listening to the Denise Richards episode because I need to. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. If you haven't already, please give the show a 5-star review if you think we've earned it, anywhere you listen. And if you'd like to get some support for yourself and just be in a group with like-minded individuals, ladies of a certain age, jump in our Facebook group, Backdoor Friends. The link is in the show notes.
Ooh, I think I will.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time. Bye.